Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another Crazy Shift show. With my guest today is Chris Denny. We're going to be talking about attention to detail, or how to improve attention to detail. Okay. All right. We're going to hide that. So I am getting an echo here. So there's a delay. So let me see what we can do here. Are you hearing a delay there, Chris, at all?
I don't hear anything on this end, and it looks like what you're saying matches your...
Okay. Yeah, I am getting an echo on your end, too. So let me... You
want me to try the headphones and see what that... See if that helps?
Let me see. Oh, I know where the echo is coming from. Never mind. I got it squared away here. So welcome to live streaming, everybody. So let me go back, see where I was here. Let's see. Lost my one screen. There we are. Okay, so now we're live. Actually, I was getting an echo from the we're on YouTube live as well. So I was getting the echo from that. So anyway, so welcome back. I'm here with Chris Denny. He's the author of a brand new book, Improve Attention to Detail. Chris, right before the show, I actually went up and I looked through a bunch of job ads, job listings, went to Indeed, Career Builder, just pulled them up. And I just wanted to see how many people kind of say, I'm looking for attention to detail. Was it in the job description? Was it out there? And, rough guess, 50%.
Yeah.
That we're looking for people that are detail oriented, attention to detail. We just met 10 minutes ago. We met online. We've been connected on LinkedIn and everything. But you and I, again, you and I just met, but attention to detail has been just sort of top of mind. It's always on everybody's list. I don't know if there's any job description that doesn't have it. Maybe sales, but right. many people say for sales that they need it too. They don't get it in salespeople, but they have it. We're, my primary business, we're in the profile business and testing business, pre-employment testing, leadership testing. And one of the things that that everybody wants is, hey, is there a way to test for attention to detail? And it's sort of, to me, up to reading your book and learning a little bit more about it and your passion for it. You've been doing this a while. Mm-hmm. Is that most people, if you don't have it, it's like, well, that's really important for the job. They're out. They're next. Right. We're knocked out. And your whole approach is what you've been doing for much of your at least the last decade, has been teaching people how to improve their attention to detail.
Yeah, that's right. It is teachable. There are systems you can put in place to teach it, or at least automate it.
So let's sort of start with the beginning here. How did you get interested in this? I mean, this is a real niche of talking about attention to detail.
Sure. So it was kind of by accident. I had an employee who was technically a really great, really talented guy, and I liked him personally. He was a really good guy, but he couldn't ever finish something in a way that was client ready or even ready for the next person internally. And there were always a lot of mistakes, and you'd have to go through 3 or 4 or 5 iterations to really get it right. And so, like I said, I wanted to keep him, and I believe that once you hire someone, you have something of a commitment to that person. It's a two-sided thing. It's part of the social responsibility of the company.
Should be, right. It should be, right. Yeah.
So I was looking for training for him. We were tiny, and was looking for a workshop or an online course or a book or something. This is about 2010 or 11. and I couldn't find anything. And so, being an entrepreneur, I said, well, I can make it. And I thought I would spend an evening making like a little worksheet that would magically fix this guy.
So,
And yeah,
we're always trying to fix people, right?
Right. Yeah. So that one evening didn't do it. And I started researching it more, and I quickly learned two things. And the first one was that it's a way bigger and more complicated topic than I thought it was. And second, I really enjoyed it. I loved the research. I mean, I was looking at systems logic, systems research, which I'm kind of a systems thinker anyway, and psychology and business theory and all these things. And my background is operations, and it gets into a lot of operations, and I loved it. So it kind of became a passion project. I really got into it. I mean, to the point where my wife was saying, "What is this weird distraction you have with attention to detail? What is this?" And I didn't figure it out quickly enough to keep that employee, but I really got into it. I spent hours at libraries, and of course, doing as time went on, then there was a lot more online research because more is available. I'm really well versed in Google Scholar, for example, and research papers. But then I started doing interviews and surveys, and that's where the real, where the tire hits the road sort of stuff started coming in, and it all came together. And it was, like I say, it was a passion project, and I was posting things online, and every now and then someone would reach out to me. A company would call and say, "Hey, I see this thing you're doing. Will you come give us a workshop? Will you come teach our employees?" And I would respectfully decline, because I was just a guy with a hobby in my mind. But in 2016, it kind of suddenly came together, and I had a system, and I realized what I had. So the next time someone called and asked me if I would do a workshop, I did. In fact, that guy is a friend of mine on LinkedIn. It'd be funny if he sees this, but he did, and it was rough, but it went well. I mean, I said, "Hey, I need to put it together into a presentation, so give me a month." And it was well received, and I enjoyed the heck out of it, and that made me go even further into research. And then I started doing workshops and training, and I'm about to launch a coaching program, and the book came out, several months ago, and I love the topic.
So if somebody's on, listens, is tuned in or catches this after on the recording, and they say, "Gosh, we have some employees that just aren't, we really like them. They're good. They're loyal. We like them as people, but they just keep making mistakes. They just don't follow through, or and I assume it can run the whole gamut of attention to detail. It could be poor time management, disorganization, missed details. It's not just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Am I correct? So what does attention to detail impact? And then, and then walk in is, if I call a client and go, "Hey, I've got somebody that's struggling with this. What's the next step? What happens?"
Sure. So I can tell you this, as far as what it impacts from our surveys. We asked the question, and the survey is for executives, mid-level managers, frontline employees, and the gamut. And there's a question: do you feel that lack of attention to detail is costing your organization money? And people that say yes, the top three reasons are, and the third one's really surprising to me, the top three reasons are decreased productivity, decreased product quality, and the third is employee morale. It's above customer service. It's above compliance and legal risks. And that surprised the heck out of me, until I started doing more workshops and really hearing a lot of the one-on-one stories. And frankly, that's a lot of the reason people call me. Basically, some companies end up with something of a culture where making those little everyday mistakes is kind of the norm, and it's sort of accepted, and they want to adjust that. They want to instill in their employees and their teams the value and importance of attention to detail, getting things right for their external customers as well as their internal customers.
Right.
So that's why it's important. Those are the top reasons. And as far as the way I help people, it's through the corporate workshops. So companies bring me in for corporate training. I've got 4 this month. I've got kind of this. The end of the year is a busy season for this, and then The online courses are a great option for typically smaller companies and for individuals. And I'm about to launch a one-on-one coaching program because I've had a lot of requests for it over the years, but it's really time consuming. And I've been reaching out to larger audiences, but I really want to do it. So I've made some spots available in my calendar for the next 3 months.
Excellent. So going back, I mean, other than calling you and saying, "Hey, I've got a problem. Can you do this?" What's that look like? I mean, what's the engagement look like? Do we have to bring you in? I'm a small company. I only have 3 employees. One of them. Do you do coaching? I mean, so kind of walk me through some of those basics, other than picking up your book and where's my camera? Picking up and reading it, right?
Yeah, so for the small company, the best option is the online courses. And if you have 3 employees, then and that happens all the time. And we actually have a group option for the online courses where a manager can buy 3 courses, and they, under the group license, then they're the group leader, and they can dole those licenses out to employees. And they can buy. I've had companies buy 50 and 60 and 75 licenses, and I've had companies buy 3. So that's there to serve, typically the smaller companies. Some companies use it as as part of their onboarding. So a new employee comes in, and that's how they start their training, which I really like to see. So and of course those companies, those clients are welcome to call me, and we can talk about their specific issues or concerns, and I can help give them some language that they can inject into that training so that they can make it a little more relevant to their specific.
So I assume, there's probably a lot of causes that people don't have, that aren't attentive, anywhere from carelessness to, could be mental acuity.
Yeah.
So there could be a lot of reasons why it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start? I mean, what's your kind of onboarding process for a new client?
So with the system, we want to build a foundation. That's the main point. So with a new client, let's say it's training or a workshop or maybe a consulting client, then I want to fully understand the issue, the cause. If it's one giant mistake in a specific department, this is another reason people call. So there's one massive, super expensive mistake, or maybe it was a near miss, like it almost happened, but it's almost happened quite a few times before. Then we want to understand that and the cause. I don't do root cause analysis, but that's the direction it's kind of going with that. You want to understand it. And then from there, we do the training, but we may focus on a specific part of the training a little more than others, because there are 5 fundamentals of attention to detail, and it's focus, interest, knowledge, systems, and attitude. And for different companies, it could be one or the other. It's typically a little bit of everything, but for some companies, it may be a little more about focus and attitude. For some companies, it's all about systems. Maybe they just don't have systems in place, or it's a mix of systems and training because people don't know systems are there, or they don't know how to use them properly. So that's the knowledge component. So you just assess it and then address it accordingly through.
Are there any industries or jobs you tend to get called more? I mean, I can see, technology, obviously, people, especially with coding. We work a lot with healthcare. So that tends to be, and honestly, we get a lot of requests, that nurses, do you have any way to check for attention to detail? And I'm not always sure that that's the cause, that's the challenge. I mean, because I know you talk about this in the book, is that you have people is kind of that multitasking thing,
right?
That we're not really capable, and points that we really can't. And I think you call it, I call it reprioritizing. You talk about, I can't remember the term you used. Task switching, right? So so I assume that's part of that. But again, we test, one of the tests that we use has a scale called multitasking. And if people score on the low, I can't say the lower end, on the other end of the scale. So one end of the scale is multitasking, the other says one at a time, routine. And people say, no, this is a really, really busy job. We need people who can multitask. And I said, well, the danger of multitasking is people don't always finish. They don't focus.
Right.
So going back to my healthcare analogy is like working with nurses who have there's all these bells and whistles going off. Patient in next beds has something. Somebody's calling from the front, from the center desk. A family member interrupts. There's an emergency that goes on. There's all these interruptions, and yet they need to be attentive to detail.
Absolutely, yeah. So nurses, and then another one are reception / clerical admin. People who are always doing something, and then other people come and distract.
The phone rings. Somebody walks up to the desk. Hey, can you come down? I need something. Can you print this off?
Yep, absolutely. So the online, they are big clients of the online courses because there's a lot more individual one-on-one type stuff there. And that's usually the challenge, is that they have to deal with all these distractions. In fact, I've done a little bit of coaching, and one of those was an admin, a reception / admin person. That was easily the most challenging person I've worked with.
What made it challenging? I'm curious.
Well, because the types of challenges they have are all over the place, and you can't avoid them. So with a lot of people, you can work on focus, you can work on discipline, and do one thing at a time, finish that, and then do something else. And there's a lot more, but that will cover quite a bit. I mean, that will really strengthen it. With a nurse or reception admin, you can't say, well, just do one thing at a time. That's not an option. You can't say, we'll turn off the distractions and ask people to come back to you in 5 minutes.
Right.
Not an option. The job description is you do everything as it needs to be done, and keep in mind that other thing that you had. So we work a lot on building systems that help them basically come back to what they were doing before more effectively, because they have a lot of those moments where you're doing task A, and then task B or task C and D also bring you away from task A, and you've got to somehow come back to task A and finish it, and task B and task C, by the way. And they've got to be done because your job is critical.
So as you're talking about, so you're talking about attention to detail, and everybody looks at that as sort of a trait or a skill or whatever it is. But you're also working with people on how do they remain focused.
Yeah.
And we live in a world of distractions. Screens. I've got literally 5 screens right in front of me.
Right.
I'm trying to stay focused on this conversation because I'm trying to look to see, hey, is anybody submitting a question? And I forgot to turn my phone off, so that's been off, but it keeps flashing. So there's a million distractions we have. So even beyond, I think what I can't say turn off people, but say, oh no, I'm really good at attention to detail, but they may not be good at this. That is task shifting,
task
switching. Yeah, they may not be good at that, or they're so good at that they're always task switching. But that's tough to say. Task switching, but they're not very good. But they're easily distracted. They lose focus, and that's I'm a walking, living example of that.
I fully understand that. I am too.
So that's something you work on. That's part of this program. That's something you actually do.
Yeah, and for some people, it's not a problem. It's like, well, how are you on this? Oh, I got that. I got that covered. So maybe we focus on the systems and the training and all the rest, right? Because some people are naturally good at that. And in fact, one of those fundamentals is attitude. And for people who are what I call naturally detail oriented, which is that sort of stereotypical person, that their closet's perfect and their desk is neat.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday on behavioral styles. I spoke actually was with a senior living management team. It wasn't a retreat; it was a training with a good friend of mine, John Dame. And so we did the DISC profile, and part of that was if you're familiar with DISC.
Yeah.
So for those who are out there, it's DISC, and the C is, are they conscientious or compliant? Are they energized by complying with the rules? And this was a group of primarily accountants. This is kind of the accounting department. So you would expect that they were all these high Cs. And we got into this whole conversation about everything being organized, everything being the right way. Don't walk in and move something around on their desk, but it was also, we got into some home things, and, John said, that his loading the dishwasher, it had to be done a certain way, and if it wasn't loaded the way that his wife thought, and I'd have my wife actually. I'll put the carrot cups. So we have a tray. We use a lot of. I do drink a lot of coffee during the day, so we have the carrot cups, and I'll put a bunch in, and then they have to be like all lined up in a particular way. So I'm not sure if that's a 10 of the 10. I mean, they are attention to detail. I'm not sure how critical that is, especially from a guy who's more results oriented. Like, who cares? In 5 minutes, I'm going to go and use 3 of them anyway. So, so it doesn't really matter. But I think the multitasking, focus, distraction aspect of this is super critical. And I sort of missed that. I saw it in the book, sort of made the connection. But until we just had this conversation, I'm not sure I made the connection between attention to detail and task switching or multitasking, which most people talk about.
Yeah, it's in that you're talking about error reduction, right? Or just making sure that mistakes aren't made. And so you're looking for what I call moments of opportunity, and that's a big one I talk about with a lot of people who especially struggle in that multitasking area. And it's okay, learn to recognize the sort of trigger points. And it's when you're doing one task for them, it's when you're doing one task and someone pulls you away for some reason, trigger point. So do something, make a note, put it down, put it in your pocket, whatever, whatever, so many different jobs, whatever that is that makes sense for you, turn the file upside down or something like that. That is what you need to do. And the multitasking thing is funny to me because, like when I wrote the book, even then I still had this attitude of, just don't do it. And, otherwise do your best to work around it. It's a huge deal. So I'm actually working now on creating a system that's kind of like, well, if you have to do it, then here's how to do it as effectively as possible. And, because I'm hitting it head on, it is something that people have to deal with. Call it whatever you want. You can call it multitasking or task switching or whatever. But that issue, that concern is something people have to deal with. So I'm actually working on putting something together for that. There's nothing I've seen that adequately addresses the topic.
It's a challenge. I mean, obviously we're going to have continued distractions, reprioritization. We just have a tremendous workload. Work's getting more complex. So your book's timely, again, but I didn't necessarily make the strong connection between one and the other. And but I think there is. So I think there's an enormous opportunity. So before we head off, because we don't want to we can talk about this probably forever. As someone who is this, get easily distracted, I get a ton done. People are always shocked at the quantity of work that I get done. And yet, I don't think I do, and I know I miss, I occasionally miss details, or I remember things in the shower, or I walk upstairs and I remember I didn't do something, I got to go back downstairs. So, for someone who is who's got a million things going on, easily distracted, what are 1 or 2 tips you can give? Because I know, probably 80% of my contacts on LinkedIn or YouTube are the same way. Yeah. So they're on the same way. So what are 1 or 2 takeaways?
So, first of all, don't beat yourself up about it. That's kind of a big thing.
I've given that up. So
I mean, if you talk to my wife, she loves to say, "Hey, Mr. Attention to Detail, you missed you put your shoes away or whatever."
Oh yeah.
So the big thing is you keep in mind, not every detail is relevant to you. It's just not. You don't have to get 100% things in life right.
It's not about perfection.
It's about getting
that in the book someplace.
It's not about perfection. Yeah. You read the book, so I don't like that word. I don't like perfectionism and the sort of the shield people use with the word perfectionist. But it's not about getting 100% of things right. It's about excellence in the things that matter to you. So whatever your role is, it's about doing that as well as possible. Some simple tips are be mindful, be as present as possible in what you're doing. And if you practice meditation or mindfulness, that's fantastic. If you don't, it's a great thing to practice. I recommend it for everyone, but
I'll tell you that I was a keynote about a couple of weeks ago, Workforce 2030.
Yeah.
in the Lehigh Valley, and we were talking about that was the focus. What's the workforce going to be 2030? So I talked about the future of work, technology, and jobs. But Pandit Dasa is he's a former monk.
Okay.
He's now a corporate trainer.
Cool.
Very interesting. Still
great.
a monk, but he lives that lifestyle. But his topic is mindfulness, and I want to give a shout out. And we'll include it in I'll include it in the write up that we do after this. But I would suggest he's a super nice guy, and you might want to connect with him.
I will.
Chris. Yeah, Pandit Dasa, DASA.
Okay.
And but he's a very down to earth guy. I mean, it's not about going up to the mountains and getting your spiritual connection. He's talking about how you can do this, and he had everybody's attention in the audience, and that's a big part of it. Yeah, so.
That's great. I mean, I bring it up in workshops, and that's my point is, and I even have a picture of, a guy with a big beard and, on a mountain ledge or whatever.
This isn't Pandit. He's
I'm like, you don't have to be this guy.
He's more professional than we are. We're in our
right. Yeah. You don't have to be that, this is something you can do in your chair or at home or while you're washing the dishes. You can practice mindfulness just about anywhere. And it is absolutely one of the most effective things you can do. But, make sure you understand what it is you're trying to achieve. On a broader goal, it can be, your overarching goal, because you don't want to forget the big picture either. A lot of people get bogged down in the details, and that's a big question they have is like, yeah, but I care about big picture and all that. Big picture is super important. That's where you're going. The details just help you get there more effectively to make sure you cover all the main points. Yep. And if you have a team, you don't have to know all of the details, of course. That's what your team is for. Someone mentioned the idea of writing a book. Well, at some point, you got to get the book out there. That's what editors are for. They take care of the other details. So it's not just about you. Systems, and that's one of the 5 fundamentals, systems include other people. Or, for instance, Grammarly is a great system. People ask a lot of times, how do I avoid mistakes in my writing and emails and all that? Grammarly, I use Grammarly like crazy. So it's just an excellent spot check. So find systems that help you in what you're doing. If you feel like there are certain challenges or issues or mistakes you're making at work, make sure you have been trained in those areas. Just check. So, and if you're dealing with it with a team, address training first, and then run down the list of options of the fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and I'll extend that to everybody else. Again, we evaluate the attention to detail. We've got a couple different ways to do that, but just because somebody is is kind of low on it, or maybe struggle with it, it just means they may need more training. And again, so often that's the case, is that if you don't have training and you don't have a skill, and your natural tendency is not to be attentive to detail, that's a problem. But it can be compensated with more training and more skill.
Right.
Super. We are just about the kind of end of our 30 minutes here. What kind of final words? I've got your book showing here. You can get it up on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's available on Amazon.
Yeah. And how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
So the best is go to the website, attention2detail.com, all spelled out, attention2detail.com, and you can call me. You can complete the contact form there, and let me know what I can help with. I'm happy to help. I travel anywhere and everywhere, so if you need me to come visit you, that's great. If you want to look at online courses, fantastic.
Okay. So you have the online courses. You do some coaching too, one-on-one?
Yeah. So I'm about to roll out the one-on-one coaching program. It's going to be a 3-month program where I work one-on-one with the individual, and we'll have 2 calls a month, and then I'll be available with phone support. And actually, a lot of times I'll reply with video responses. Okay. And they'll also have access to the online courses so that they can review. And I might say, watch that part again or that. But that's a real one-on-one about their specific challenges, their specific issues. And it could be reducing mistakes or correcting mistakes. And it could be about, improving processes and systems in the work they do, or even for a team.
Yeah, no, absolutely appreciate it. So attentiontodetail.com, get a hold of you. You'll be able to learn about the online courses, your coaching program, how to contact you for some corporate training, and really appreciate it. Hey, it was great to meet you.
Yeah,
This was
great to
fun.
meet
It
you.
went very, very fast, and you literally, I mean, even reading the book and sort of living in, within this world of people wanting to improve their attention to detail, never made a couple connections. So this was super helpful, which is what why I like to do these interviews, because we're constantly learning. So again, thanks very much, Chris. Go up to for everybody who's listening, or now or after on a recording. Go to Attention to Detail, or go up to Amazon, get Improve Attention to Detail by Chris Denny. And until the next live streaming show, until we're talking about more crazy shift, this is Ira Wolfe. Take care. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.